My name is Marcus Cade. For 18 years, I believed I was my father's son. At the reading of his will, I found out I was only ever his experiment. Elias Cade built Cade Industries from a single machine shop into a company worth $400 million. He adopted me when I was 6, after my parents died. He never once, in 18 years, treated me like anything less than his heir. Until the day the lawyer opened the folder. The family gathered in the same oak-paneled office where I'd done my homework as a boy. My stepbrother Preston sat across from me, already smiling like he knew something I didn't. To my son Preston, the lawyer read, I leave full controlling interest in Cade Industries, its subsidiaries, and the family estate. Then a pause. To Marcus, whom I raised as my own but who is not of my blood, I leave the contents of the safe in my study, and nothing more. Preston didn't even try to hide his smile. I sat in that room while 40 years of belonging quietly came apart, and I said nothing, because there was nothing left to argue with. The will was signed, notarized, final. My father had been dead 3 weeks and he'd already told the world, in writing, exactly what I was worth to him. That night I went to the safe. I expected cash, old photographs, maybe nothing at all. Instead I found a single leather ledger, its cover worn soft from handling, and a note in my father's handwriting. You were always better with money than Preston. Prove me right. Quietly. Inside the ledger were records for something called the Cade Reserve, a dormant private account my father had built decades ago, separate from the company, seeded from his very first contract and never touched since. Untouched and compounding for 31 years. I had no idea what it was actually worth. I only had a name, an account number, and a dead man's instruction to prove him right. I called the one person my father trusted with numbers more than anyone on his own board. Diane Ashworth, a forensic accountant who'd audited Cade Industries for a decade before quietly retiring. Diane took one look at the ledger and went very still. Marcus, she said, do you understand what your father actually gave you? The Cade Reserve wasn't a savings account. It was a private holding structure, patents, minority stakes, dormant licensing deals your father collected but never activated. On paper, worth $12 million. Properly managed, worth considerably more. He didn't leave you nothing, Diane said. He left you everything he built before Preston was even born. He just made sure Preston would never think to look for it. For a moment, sitting in her office, I understood something my father never said out loud. He hadn't disinherited me. He'd hidden me from Preston on purpose in plain sight. But understanding that didn't pay for anything. I had a name on a ledger and a company I no longer had any claim to. So I did the only thing that made sense. I didn't fight the will. I let Preston have Cade Industries, and I started building something of my own, quietly, using the reserve as a foundation. Diane became my partner in it. We activated the dormant patents first, 3 of them, for industrial coatings my father had shelved decades earlier because they weren't profitable yet. They were profitable now. Within 4 months, the first licensing deal closed. Within 7, the second. I told no one at Cade Industries what I was doing. Not because I was ashamed of it. Because I wanted to see, first, what Preston would do with a company handed to him instead of earned. I didn't have to wait long to find out. 6 months after the funeral, a former Cade Industries engineer reached out to me directly. He'd been let go in a round of restructuring, the 4th that year. He told me Preston had brought in a new growth partner, a man named Foster Lang, who was pushing the company to cut quality control in exchange for faster, cheaper contracts. I asked why he was telling me this. He said, because your father used to say you were the one who actually understood what this company was for. I didn't act on it yet. I just listened, and I kept building. By month 9, the reserve had grown past 20 million. Diane and I incorporated formally, a small industrial materials firm, Ashworth Cade Innovations, built on the very patents my father had shelved. We were careful, deliberately unglamorous. No press releases. No LinkedIn, no sementes. Just contracts quietly with companies that used to buy from Cade Industries. It was Diane who first noticed the pattern. Marcus, she said one evening, going through public filings, Three of Cade Industries' biggest clients switched suppliers this quarter. Guess who they switched to? Without me ever contacting a single one of them directly. They'd simply noticed Cade Industries' quality slipping and gone looking for who still did it right. I still hadn't told Preston I existed in this world at all. That changed at the industry gala 11 months after the funeral, the same event Cade Industries hosted every year, the one I used to attend at my father's side. I wasn't invited this time. I went anyway, as Diane's guest, representing Ashworth Cade. Preston saw me across the room and actually laughed. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said. "Diane's firm? Goo. Enjoy the consulting scraps." I let him have that moment. I always intended to. What Preston didn't know was that Foster Lang, his growth partner, was in the room too, quietly meeting with two of Cade Industries' remaining major clients, offering them a private buyout of their contracts to move to a shell company Foster controlled personally. Diane had been tracking Foster's filings for 3 months. He wasn't growing Cade Industries. He was hollowing it out, one contract at a time, and pocketing the difference through his own holding company. Preston had no idea his own growth partner was quietly stealing the company out from under him. I could have let it happen. Preston had built nothing and lost everything through his own carelessness. That would have been its own kind of justice. But my father didn't build Cade Industries for it to be gutted by a man like Foster Lang. And whatever Preston was, whatever choices he'd made, he was still, in some sense, family. So at the gala, in front of the same board members who'd watched me get disinherited 11 months earlier, I asked for 5 minutes. I laid out what Diane and I had found. Foster's shell company, the redirected contracts, the falsified growth reports he'd been showing Preston every quarter. Documented, dated, verified. Preston's face went white. Not because I'd exposed him, because I'd exposed the man he'd trusted more than he'd ever trusted me. Foster tried to leave. 2 board members physically stood in the doorway. "Why?" Preston asked me in front of everyone. "Would you help me? I got everything. You got nothing." "You didn't get everything," I said. "You got a company." I got told in writing that I never belonged to this family in the first place. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because Dad spent 40 years building something real, and I wasn't going to watch it get stolen by someone who never had to earn a single piece of it." The board voted that night to remove Foster Lang from every position he held at Cade Industries and pursue full legal action for breach of fiduciary duty. Preston didn't thank me. Not that night. He just stood there, holding a folder full of proof that the one person he trusted had been robbing him for a year, while the one person he'd humiliated had just saved his company. 3 weeks later, my father's original lawyer contacted me. There was an addendum to the will, filed the same week as the original, sealed until either party demonstrated they understood what they'd been given. It named me co-trustee of the Cade family estate alongside Preston, effective the moment I formally activated the Cade Reserve, which I'd done unknowingly the day Diane and I incorporated Ashworth Cade. My father hadn't cut me off. He'd built a second test I didn't know I was taking. On the same day he built the one everyone in that room watched me fail. Preston asked to meet me after the reading. Just the 2 of us, no lawyers, no board. "I didn't know," he said, "about the addendum, about any of it. I thought he just chose me." "He chose both of us," I said. "He just wanted to see what each of us would build when we thought no one was watching." "You could have let Foster take everything," Preston said. "You could have let me lose it all and just stepped over the wreckage." I thought about it. I told him honestly. But that's not the company Dad built. And I didn't spend 11 months proving him right just to prove myself wrong. 6 months later, Ashworth Cade Innovations formally merged with Cade Industries. Not a hostile takeover. Not a rescue, a genuine merger, with Diane as CFO and myself as co-CEO alongside Preston. It wasn't the company my father left me at first. It was the one I actually built, folded back into the one he'd always meant for both of us to run together, whether either of us knew it or not. At the next industry gala, Preston introduced me himself. "My brother," he said, "who built more with nothing than most people build with everything." I didn't correct him. For the first time since that afternoon in the oak-paneled office, I didn't need to. My father never told me I mattered. He just made sure that if I ever doubted it, I'd have to build the proof myself. I did. And in the end, that's the only inheritance that was ever really mine.